Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya. Namo Namah.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Seems a bit odd for me to welcome you because you should be welcoming me. I haven't taught at this class for years, so I don't actually know who you are. Anyway, it's very nice to be here back at the Monday class. I did question the wisdom of me leading this first meditation, as it's not my class, but anyway, I was voted in. So we're going to do a meditation, as we've said, we're going to meditate in this first half, and I'll say something about that in a moment. Then we'll have the obligatory tea break. You all know that whatever class we ever do at the London Buddhist Centre, we always have a tea break. And then Subhadramati and I will be in conversation, which we planned meticulously and have now changed it all, and who knows what will happen. But we've been friends for very many years, so between us we should be able to come up with something. So we'll be in conversation. In a way, kicking off a whole season of events here at the London Buddhist Centre, particularly focusing on fundraising for Triratna, the Women's Ordination Retreat Centre. So in a way this is a kick-off event, to use a football analogy. So Subhadramati and I are going to kick that off. So I just remember to welcome those of you online. So I look up as if to the heavens. I'm actually just looking at that camera up there. So welcome anyone tuning in online. Is there anyone tuning in online? There is, good. Okay, that's good. So welcome all of you from at home. Okay, so we're going to meditate in a minute, but I want to say a little bit about that, and hopefully what I say will kind of lead us into the conversation in the second half of the evening. So recently one of the things I quite often do is I read seminars from Bhante Sangharaj, the founder of this movement and order, my teacher, Subhadramati's teacher. Bhante means revered sir. Actually, when I first heard revered teacher, when I first heard the word, I thought it was a nickname, but it actually means revered teacher. But in our tradition and in my feeling toward Bhante, it was always had that element of reverence, but also affection. That's how I always took it. And I knew Bhante personally, and spent, for my generation, a fair amount of time with Bhante. Anyway, I was re-looking at the seminars, which are really Bhante teaching the Dharma to small groups of people. A lot of what the writing that comes down to us from Bhante are really him talking to a pretty small group of very young people, basically. Yeah. So Bhante actually hasn't written as many books as it looks like. He's now got his complete works, which is sort of that length. But a lot of his teaching was actually given to small groups of people. And if you read those teachings sort of carefully, he's always trying to teach the particular people in front of him. Buddhism, the Dharma, as it's more traditionally known, is not a theory, it's not a dogma, it's not really even an ism. It's not, it's not like Marxism or feminism or anti-establishmentarianism. It's not an ism, it's not a theory. It's more like a spirit that you have to catch. It's more like a sensibility that you inhabit. It's nothing remotely like a theory. So what you find when you read the seminars, and Bhante gave many, many seminars, particularly in the earlier days, what you find is Bhante saying very, very different things to different people. Fully contradicting himself at times, or at least appearing to, because times change, the people change, the issues that are arising change. So he has to say different things at different times. Just see how theories can't accommodate that. Theories have to just say, well, this is how it is. But something that's born of experience, that's born of direct experience, and that is more like a sensibility, can seem to fully contradict itself. Hi there, come in, and go sit down. And so it can seem to fully contradict itself. So you get some seminars where Bhante, for instance, is really emphasizing the value of work and how important it is in the Buddhist tradition, particularly in Zen Buddhism. Then you'll get another seminar where he really says, work as little as possible, and really you're here just to decorate life, and so on. Every seminar, Bhante will talk in a different way because he's not talking from a theory. He's trying to communicate to the people he's actually with a kind of spirit, which is a spirit of liberation, not a theory, not a social theory, not a political theory, but a kind of spirit that you need to catch on to. Anyway, all that's by way of introduction. I was reading this seminar, and very often with Bhante's seminar, he just sort of nails things so clearly. In fact, actually, I think Bhante's clarity weirdly can become a bit confusing, in as much as it looks quite straightforward. And I think sometimes we haven't noticed what's there. I talk of order members particularly, and myself included, because it seems so straightforward. One of the arguments for difficult writing, this was an argument used by Heidegger, whose philosophical writing is very, very difficult indeed. Apparently, once you know the sort of former, you can get it fairly, well, not easily, but it's all consistent. But his argument for his very difficult way of writing was to say that he wanted the reader to work. So when they got to understand his theory, they had done some work in understanding it. The problem with clarity is it looks like you don't need to do any work. So a lot of us disciples of Bhante, other members of the order and so on, what we're tasked to do really is to keep on working at trying to understand Bhante's teaching, because it looks simple and clear. It's just weirdly becomes something that is, I think, something of not quite a problem, but something that we need to understand more, that we can gloss over things because they look straightforward, but actually they're very, very deep indeed. So anyway, one of the things he said was, someone just asked him, what is the Buddhist life? What is the Buddhist life? It's a very simple question. And Bhante says, the Buddhist life is primarily a committed life. That's all he says. The Buddhist life is primarily a committed life. And I was very, very struck by that. I mean, I should know, because when at Ordination, Subhadramati and I, and anyone else who's in the order in the room just now, and anyone watching online, we committed our life to the practice of the Dharma. That's what we did. And Bhante's understanding of commitment, and the traditional understanding of commitment, is something that you never go back on. We're losing this almost moment by moment in modern culture, because we tend to commit for a bit and then think we can change our mind. If you commit thinking I could change my mind, you haven't really committed. I even remember when my parents married, something before the steam age, when they married, their understanding was that's it. There's no going back on this. We just have to work with it. And you can see there's been negatives of that, but there's also been great positives to that, not least that they stayed together when myself and my siblings were all brought up. So in Bhante's understanding of this word commitment, it's something very, very serious, and that you only do having really decided that's the best thing, because commitment is a very serious matter in life. You really only make progress in anything when you commit to it. And it's very tempting in modern life, which has so much to offer, or at least seems to, if you scroll through Instagram, it's very tempting not to ever commit yourself to do something. You can, and this is very much the case in Buddhism now, so you can do a bit of Buddhism here. You can do a bit of, Theravada Buddhism. You could do some, some Vedanta, some Hindu meditation, do Christian mysticism. You can just hop around online from one to another. And it always looks very interesting. And it can be inspiring. But its danger is that you never choose one thing to commit to. It's a bit like someone thinking, shall I be a concert pianist or a trumpet player or a high diver or a jazz dancer? The more you try and do those things, the less you'll go with any of them. Yeah. So Bhante really emphasises in all of his teaching, you need to commit yourself to something and go through to it all to its depth. Yeah. Which is very, very challenging to do, because as soon as you do that, all sorts of elements of yourself rear up to protest, because actually you weren't so sure that you wanted to commit. It's a very, very serious thing, committing yourself. And commitment is not a once and for all matter. Commitment is something you have to keep doing year by year, month by month, week by week, hour by hour, and indeed moment by moment. That's Bhante's vision of commitment, that you keep on remembering in Buddhist phraseology that you're committing yourself to going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So your behaviour needs to keep on being measured by that commitment. And that gives you a certain kind of muscle, as it were. You have to sort of test yourself against the commitment you've made. And that, I can tell you, is very challenging. Subhadramati and I were talking about ordination. We went out for a coffee this afternoon, didn't we? It was very nice. Saw a few paintings, you do. And we were talking about ordination. And I was saying for men, my advice to men is hesitate. Yeah? If you're thinking about asking for ordination, hesitate. Because it's a very serious commitment and you need to be really sure that you want to do that. And then I said my advice to many of us for ordination is then go to Padmaloka as soon as they can, which is pretty soon, immediately, and you can go on a retreat, go for refuge retreat, which really shows you I have now made a decision, and that is changing my life in very direct ways. I'm now going on a retreat, with, in this case, just men who've asked for ordination. Subhadramati was saying that she wouldn't tell women to hesitate, which is interesting. We can discuss that later. And she was saying, yes, but I have to say, anyway, ... We'll come back to that. That keeps a bit of a cliffhanger on that one. So what I thought we'd do in our meditation is just commit to it. Yeah? So commitment is a lifetime thing, a year-by-year thing, but it's a moment-to-moment thing. And that especially shows itself in meditation. Are you committed to this meditation or not? Commitment is not an abstraction, it's not a theory. Are you committed to deepening your experience now? There's no other time to deepen your experience. There's no other place in which you'll get in a better state. All you need to practice the Dharma is you and your mind. As soon as you close your eyes, you're confronted with your mind, which is a posh way of saying you're confronted with yourself. Do you want to commit towards a deeper, richer, fuller self, or do you want to keep on reacting habitually, automatically, without awareness? Yeah? That's our moment-to-moment decision we have to make. I often make the second one, and I just feel like thinking about stuff, and I'm sure you do as well. But you see, we can practice the art of commitment. We can actually sit just now, we're going to meditate for 20, 25 minutes, something like that, and just commit. And what that needs to look like is not any kind of self-criticism, which is actually just weirdly sort of an anathema, and I can't even say the word. It's anti-commitment. Yeah. As soon as you're critical, my partner's daughter, colleague, one of the things, she's 17 now, I'm trying to work with her high levels of self-criticism. Very, very difficult thing to do, because she knows what I'm doing. Once when she was about 7, I rang her up and said, anyway, darling, how are you? She said, what are you getting at? I said, oh, no, just asking how you are. She said, yeah, but you're normally getting at something. Which is exactly right. Yeah. I was getting at something. So that's that instinct we often have to think, I should be doing better. I did do better in the past. I should be doing better now. This isn't going that well. How am I at this? all of that, which is now kind of an epidemic, that kind of self-questioning. Hopefully many of you won't have it, but I have had it a lot. That needs to be, the part of the commitment is to commit to putting that aside again and again. It's like having the radio on, and this radio just is a really bad station and says rubbish things, and you just ignore it, yeah? You just notice, okay, I'm doing that thing about I can't meditate. It's such a good thing Maitreyabandhu said about commitment, and I can't do that. You know, that's now kind of an epidemic way of thinking, yeah? So the commitment is, no, I'm going to put that aside for now. I know I'm really into that, but I'm going to put that aside for now, and I'm just going to see if I can feel my breath. You just get towards your breath and you think, actually, I wish I'd gone to see Dune 2. I'll just pop that aside for now. It's actually not that good. I'll just pop that aside for now and I'll just do the breath, yeah? So that's all we're going to do. And, you know, do you see how in doing that, we're practicing commitment in the microcosm? But you see how what we'll be talking about, ordination, is about committing in every sphere of your life towards towards transcendental goals of Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Yeah? But hey, that all sounds rather grand and abstracted. Let's just see if we can commit ourselves, at least for the next 25 minutes. So when you're ready, closing your eyes. As soon as you've closed your eyes, bring your awareness into your body. And your body might be feeling comfortable or uncomfortable, pleasant or unpleasant. And you're just committing to working with whatever you find there. You don't have to be in a particular state, a good state or a bad state or a nothing state. Your body can be your body as it is just now. And our commitment is to work creatively with that. So first of all, just feeling the weight of your body on the cushions, on the floor. Try and give your weight to the cushions and the floor. See if you can soften your face, so you're not needing to use your face now, so you can soften your brow, soften your eyes and your jaw. Just imagining your whole body, your whole system calming down, quietening down. So you don't even need to think about working with that, you can just imagine it. As you sit here, your body is getting heavier on the floor, heavier on the chair. And as we imagine a relaxing, if we did relax, we'd then feel more buoyant, more warmer, emotionally warmer. That would just happen naturally if we relaxed. So we could just imagine that the body is heavy and warm. And as that happens, we sort of feel more at ease, we feel our heart open a bit. So in the meditation, we're just going to commit ourselves to feeling the breath, and you can use the counting if that's useful or not. And just commit ourselves to keep coming back to that. Coming back to the breath, stabilizing the breath in the body, feeling a kind of warmth towards ourselves rather than a criticism of ourselves. Let's see if we can do that for the next 20 minutes. And sit still. Come back to the weight of your body on the cushions. Opening your awareness to include the sounds around you. But sitting still for a moment. Okay, so let's go next door and have a cup of tea, and then we'll come back and Subhadramati and I will have a talk. So welcome back online. Let's just start now. Okay. So welcome to everyone online. We've got something like 200... No, it's already been pressed.
The press, okay, thank you.
We've got something like 240 of you online, so that's really wonderful. Someone tuning in from Cornwall, beautiful place. Someone tuning in from São Paulo, from the Midlands, from Adhisthana, the Dharma Life course in Adhisthana, so a big shout out to you, Women's Dharma Life course. So apparently more and more people, it's like devas, little angels appearing all over the globe, watching us, well actually watching Subhadramati and me. They're not watching you. I'm starting to feel like Dame Enveridge. Anyway, really nice to have so many of you tuning in. And of course, lovely to have actual people in the room. Yeah. Okay, so Subhadramati and I are going to have a conversation. We've had lots of conversations actually, but this is a bit different because it's a public conversation. So I thought we'd start by just talking about our friendship. We've been friends since before some of you were born. In fact, quite a few of you were born. About 35, 37, 38 years, something like that. How did that happen?
Well, it's always hard to pinpoint, isn't it? What I remember, and I know you remember this as well, Maitreyabandhu, is we used to come to our Wednesday night class, which is a bit the same as this class, except it's on a Wednesday. It's for newcomers. And we used to be the welcomers, and we loved doing that job. And we used to stand with the dana bowl, just the same as now, except it was actual real money that people put in, instead of like contactless hadn't been invented. No. But that's one of my strongest memories, is just standing with you at the door of the class. What else did we do? We came to classes together, went on retreats together, just that kind of thing.
I think we briefly fell in love.
And I think that was you that for one day.
That was me, yeah. And then we decided that I hadn't fallen in love and it was all fine.
I think I only found out about it later.
Yeah, no, well, there we go. We've all been there. We've all been there. But yeah, so we did. We used to stand every. We always used to put our hand up to that job. You know, we had a team meeting just before this class. You know, which we always have, and you know, the same thing. Someone says, "Who wants to do this? Who wants to do that?" And people used to say, "Who wants to do the door?" And it was always Subhadramati on the door. I personally remember. I don't know why this is such a vivid memory, but I remember somebody coming in holding a copy of Christmas Humphrey's book on Buddhism, and I said no. Don't read that, because it was famously not very good. Anyway, we've been friends for very, very many years, but I thought we might try and say something about kind of what that's based on.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we've led retreats together, we've been in loads of meetings together, haven't we? We were in the council together. We're now in the College of Public Preceptors together. This afternoon we went to look at some Hodgkin paintings and had a coffee and a cake, as you do. But what is our friendship based on? What is friendship for us, do you think?
Well, I'll tell you one thing I've been thinking about. I can only really think in terms of examples, as you know.
We're both like that.
So we're both like that. So just after I got ordained in 1995. As a new order member, I went off to Dublin, to our Dublin Buddhist Centre. And I was actually gone for 9 years. And I think that always surprises you when I tell you that. So I was gone for 9 years. Now, as far as I can remember, we didn't massively keep in touch during that time. No. We'd have bumped into each other maybe once a year or once every other year on our big order convention. And we'd probably said hello and had a wave and a little chat. But the thing was, when we came back, it wasn't just that we carried on where we left off. I felt we were more friends when I came back, like 9 years later, than we had been before I went. And I just thought, well, that's quite interesting. That must say something about friendship. And I think, well, I'll tell you what I think, and you can see if you agree. I think what had happened during that time, although we hadn't been in touch with each other, is we had really, really deepened in our Dharma lives, for want of a better way of putting it. We'd got more and more committed to being Dharma practitioners each and wanting to share that with more and more people. I was at the Dublin Buddhist Centre. That was quite a newish centre at the time, helping to get that going. You know, teaching at several classes, not very well as I remember, but doing my best. And presumably you had been doing that here all that time at the London Buddhist Centre, teaching, helping people, like welcoming people in, like literally, but also kind of symbolically as well, wanting to encourage people's growth. And then somehow we'd both been doing that, and then when we come back together, we must have recognised that in each other.
Well, I do actually find that really interesting, because like you mentioned this afternoon that you'd had this 9 years away, and it's just not there in my experience. It's just my experience, and like you say, is our friendship deepening over all of this time. You know, a long time, probably 37. Since I was 24, you were probably
22.
Yeah, something like that when we became friends. So it's well, the first thing that struck me, you know, that I never include that 9 years. There's not a gap in the friendship. It's not like I had a friendship and then there's this great big gap. Where's my friend? And then she's back again. And then, sorry for the noises. That won't translate across the world. And it's interesting because then you know, I think, okay, well that's, like you say, it's because well, you'd gone off to Dublin, and in those days, and I think I'd like to emphasise this because I want to kind of remind us of that. That was a sort of our duty, as it were, as order members, particularly new order members, that we would go out and teach the Dhamma. You know, this goes all the way back to the the Buddha's first disciples, then becoming enlightened, and the Buddha say, now go off for the welfare of all beings. He didn't say, let's have a great time together and let's just be like enlightened together, like really good. He just said, go off now and teach all beings. So that felt very strongly what we were sort of, from Bhante, sort of not expected in the sort of pejorative sense, but that's what we would do. We would communicate the Dharma for the welfare of all. So we weren't doing anything different. Is one way I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
We were doing it in different places, you in Dublin. We were probably doing the same classes, newcomers classes.
Yeah, we were.
You in Dublin, me here. So then I was thinking, okay, well, partly it's because we're doing the same thing. And then we were saying just this afternoon in our little coffee that our friendship is based on going for refuge to the Three Jewels, you know. And it's based on an expression of going for refuge to the Three Jewels in this context, with Bhante as our teacher and guide. And that, like if someone said to me now or when you were away those years, Subhadramati is, I don't know, gone back to Catholicism, or I don't know, taking up Vedanta, or even gone to another Buddhist tradition, I wouldn't have believed them.
Oh.
You know, I just said, no, that's not what she's like. She wouldn't have done that. I would have actually not believed them, which is quite sort of striking, I think.
I didn't know you were going to say that.
I never know what I'm going to say.
Well, so why wouldn't you have believed them? I mean, I wouldn't have done any of those things, but...
No, pause for dramatic effect. Well, it's very interesting because I was thinking, we're going for refuge to the Three Jewels with Bhante Sangharakshana as our guide. So first things about that to say, I think, is, again, this whole matter of commitment, as Bhante said, is primary. You go for refuge to the Buddha, the enlightened Buddha, as your human ideal. You do that by practicing the Dharma, and you do that with a community of people. And especially you go for refuge to the enlightened disciples of the past. But you always do that. That's really, when you think about it, it's very abstract. Go for it. You know, I can barely say it without sort of falling asleep. You know, go for refuge to the... Bhante was always very keen on, you go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the Three Jewels. You know, it was very keen on spelling it all out. And it's completely right, but it's sort of weirdly abstract. So first of all, it needs to become embodied in an actual teacher and an actual teaching with actual people. It's not some Buddha on a cloud somewhere. It's not some Dharma, generalized Dharma that, you know, is across the world with something kind of like a bit like McDonald's, you know, Buddhism. You know, it's not a sort of generalized Buddhism that sort of tastes the same wherever you go, and with lots of adjectives. And it's not an idea of a community. It's an actual community based around actual teachings given by an actual teacher. And I think our friendship partly comes out of that. And because I know, sorry, I'll just ramble on for a bit.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
But what's interesting anyway, I hope this is interesting to you, but what's interesting about that for me is I never think like that. You know, I don't think I'm friends with Subhadramati because I'm going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha under the auspices of our great teacher, Urgyen Sangharakshana. I never think like that. It would be weird.
It would be weird.
I'm friends with Subhadramati because Subhadramati is Subhadramati. There isn't any abstract reason, even a sort of good reason, a Buddhist reason. It's because you are you. And yet, that you being you, somewhere I know in a way that I can't actually quite describe and can never really conceptualize, my knowledge of you being you is somehow backlit by my understanding of going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha within this particular culture and tradition. So I think I was after our coffee, I was thinking this on the way home, thinking, actually, you see how anything that's a genuine ideal, one temptation is to abstract it into a universal thing you can say, like go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. It chops off the tongue so easily, one should be aware of it just from that sake. So one way is to sort of abstract it like that. Another way is to say, oh no, I'm sort of particularly friendly with you in your uniqueness, whatever you did, which is now the common understanding, I think. But I've always found that weirdly romantic. You know, I have had friends who stopped practicing Buddhism and stopped practicing within this context. And what it does is it weakens the friendship to the point to which I can't be a friend in the sense that I'm a friend to you. I don't need to think about being a friend to you or hoping to be a friend of you, or us being friends is a better way of putting it. I don't need to. I just am. Now, and so much so that I know you're not going to do those things. Because I know I'm not going to do those things. And knowing I'm not going to do those things is not that different to knowing that you're not going to do those things. And that's, I think that's grown and grown.
Yeah.
So now we come together at the college. We're still the same person we were when in our 20s. You're still you. And I'm still me. But you see, I don't know whether it gets across, but the universal and the intimate are somehow transcended in real experience of going for refuge. It's not that it's you in your uniqueness and that whatever you did, I would be friends. Neither is it some abstraction because you're going for refuge of the Three Jewels with Bhante as your teacher, I'm a friend. There's something above and beyond that duality that we are friends in, which is so ordinary and normal, as it were, as to not notice it. Because mostly we work together. You know, mostly we've worked together.
Yeah, mostly we've worked. Yeah. I just thought of something. I hope it's not too kind of grandiose, but it's something when you were talking about Maitreyabandhu, I was just thinking about the Buddha and when the Buddha died, and well, for the Buddha, we call it parinirvana when the Buddha dies. So for the Buddha, like that physical death was irrelevant, but it was also irrelevant to the other enlightened disciples. So I'm not trying to say that we're even remotely enlightened ourselves, because we're not. But somehow, maybe it's a tiny, 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 when there's a friendship like this based on the Dharma, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny little glimpse of something about why the Buddha's enlightened disciples weren't upset when the Buddha died, because it made no difference, because they were partaking of the same thing. So something that we think of as huge as death was irrelevant. What do you think?
Yeah, well, that's...
It's something about, I'm not saying it is that, but something about when you partake of the same thing, the person isn't different from what they partake in together.
Yeah,
no, maybe not.
Well, part of it is this thing about minds.
Yeah.
I still am really struck how we use the word so lightly, and we don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We say my mind, your mind, the mind, mind. Nobody knows what it is. I don't know what it is, you don't know what it is, anyone watching doesn't know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. But we use the word in common parlance as if we do, and we don't. So then I think there's something about friendship which is a sort of overlapping of mind.
Yeah.
If you did a sort of knowledge of mind. Every time I talk about mind now, I keep going back to my mother's death last year, and I was not looking after her very much. I was mostly sitting around and trying not to be a nuisance. But I had this weird sense of this all feels very familiar. And then she died. The day she died, her last word was "lovely," which is wonderful. She said it was a very strange experience because she said, she was. Every day I thought she'd die that day, and then she was whispering something to me, and I leant over, and she said, tea. So I went and made her a cup of tea, which is the English answer to every problem. And I made her this cup of tea, and she held it in her hand like a child, a sick child, and drank this tea and said, "Lovely." But she died that day, and that day was the anniversary of my father's death, 27 years before. And of course that could be coincidental, but experientially didn't feel it. I felt my father's presence around very strongly, and had this sense that she was, even at one point she was very confused, and she was saying, "I don't know what to do." And I said, "I don't know what to do either, but ask Dad, because Dad's done it." So he knows what to do. I don't know what to do. It was like she had to crawl through this terrible tunnel out of this life, and it's very, very painful with the sort of burden of the body. But perhaps minds, whatever they are, well, they're not a thing. If consciousness isn't a thing, you can't. So therefore, you can't have one mind or many minds, because that only applies to things. So the experience in friendship, I think, is of being, as it were, one mind. I have that with you. I have that with Yana Vacha. I have that with many of my close friends. I have it with Vishvantra. We've been meeting since the beginning of time. And it's very difficult to describe. It's kind of irreducible. It's nothing to do with having things in common.
No.
Like once a year, the three of us, Maitreyabandhu Subhadramati and I, we go to the T.S. Eliot Prize reading, and in my case, get ever more disappointed because it's so poor. Anyway, but that's our little outing. We all read poetry and so forth, but we've all got problems. Poetry reading is only one of them, but we go every year as our little outing, don't we?
We do.
And we sort of have that in common, but it's not very important. You come from Scotland, I come from England. There are so many, as it were, differences. But my main sense is that our minds overlap. And if minds aren't a thing, perhaps they, I can still talk to my dad. I can still talk to Bhante. Just in my meditation just now, I was talking to Bhante. But human beings have done that until very, very recently. Historically, human beings always talk to the dead. I think it's in Madagascar, they actually dig the dead up every year around Christmas and have conversations with them and tell them the news about what's happened that year, who's gone out with who said, "Oh, you can't believe it," and the dead tell them their news. Human beings have always talked to the dead from the beginning of time. And it's only recently we think we're too clever for that now. We think we're sort of cleverer than everybody else in history, generally speaking, and that we don't do such silly things like talking to the dead. And it's not doing us any good at all. Anyway, it's a bit of a disquisition on mind, but I'm struck thinking about you and our friendship for so long, and that 9 years where you are still very much in my mind, but not literally. Wasn't. I bet you weren't in Dublin thinking, "Oh, Maitreyabandhu, da da da." Oh, you weren't.
That's right. No, I wasn't.
And yet, it's as if our minds overlap, and I know you.
Yeah.
But not. Sometimes you have to remind me how many siblings you've got and so on. But I know you, and it's as if our minds sort of overlap.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of Bhante's vision for the order, is that all order members' lives he wants their minds to overlap, which increases your difference with each other. It doesn't kind of reduce you to a group member, even a Buddhist group member, an order member. It brings out your uniqueness, but it goes beyond that.
Yeah, I think it is something like that. And I want to somehow include in that mind overlapping, well, maybe we've touched on it already, that each of us knew about each other, that we're trying to invite other people to share in something that we'd found, so amazing, and with that taste of liberation, that each of us knew that, like, for sure about each other, without without even having to talk about it ever. To me, that's one of the strongest things that makes me sure of the connection, that I know that's what we both want.
Yeah.
And then you get that lovely thing, well, we're aware of that each other when we're apart, and then when you're together, it kind of doesn't, it just feels quite interchangeable, like it doesn't matter which one of us is doing it. You know,
Yes,
say we
that's
were
right.
leading a retreat together.
Yes, that's right.
We'd quite commonly be saying, oh, shall I give the talk or shall you give it? Oh, you do it tonight, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh no, tell you what, let's swap it around, you know. Well, you even swapped my chair.
I did, yeah.
I'd set myself up to say, you know, and I came back and you said
Well, that's the place of honour, you see.
but that's really interesting. But I kind of, it was just very nice, like, to come in. I think I've been moved to here by Maitreyabandhu. But there's something about, what am I trying to say? I think when you've got that shared, it completely, like, there's no competitiveness in the friendship. There's no negative competitiveness.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I give like 10 talks and you give one talk, or you give 10 and I give one. It's whoever, I don't know, or I do the cooking and you do the talk, or maybe, no, maybe you don't do the
Better
cooking.
than I don't do the cooking, I can tell you.
But something
You
like,
do the cooking, definitely.
Yeah, it's something like that, isn't it? That feels like a very important strand in it.
Well, I suppose that's also that anything that you value, you share.
Yeah.
You know, I remember Alex, a little baby, eating a banana, which she was obviously valuing and wanting to share it with me. Strangely unappealing when it's gone through her toddler's fingers. But it's just an instinct, isn't it? That something that's important to you, you want to share it.
Yeah.
And we've done that. I mean, that's why we were on the door, wasn't it? We weren't paid to be on the door. I was at art school. You were
working next door.
Working next door in what was then the Wild Cherry. We just felt that what we were doing was really important. We wanted to share it.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that I was thinking, actually, slightly less metaphysically, was because we know each other in that sense. It helps you know each other in another sense. Like, I remember once saying, I can tell when you get annoyed because your glasses get smaller. Did you hear that? You know, I was in this meeting, and my sense is if Subhadramati is getting annoyed by something, her glasses get smaller. Now, that is not actually literally possible. And you said to me that when I die, on my gravestone will be written, "Death is the wrong metaphor." Somebody recently said to me, "You're only interested in metaphors and chocolate." I said, "That's not fair. I'm interested in metaphors, chocolate and coffee." But if you know each other in this deepest sense, and even remember the metaphor of deepest is kind of weirdly a bit romantic if you're not careful. It's not that we know every detail of it, but it's a bit like my friendship with Maitreyabandhu upstairs. I just know he's going for refuge to the Three Jewels, at least if I had to put it abstractly. But putting it like that is so weird. I just know him. His depth isn't to do with, I don't know, something gorgeously romantic and subtle. But knowing somebody at that depth, that I know that you wouldn't convert to Catholicism. I know all sorts of things about you because I know them from me, and because to use that metaphor, can only be a metaphor that our minds overlap. It means it's easier for both of us to say things at another level, like you're getting annoyed just now, or you at the college meeting you had to give me a few talkings to on occasion, because you empathise with what's most essential about the person. You can then talk about things that are getting in the way of what's most essential. Me getting into self-pity, you getting annoyed, that would be, I mean, this hardly ever happens.
But that's what it is. Something about, I was thinking on that sort of level, for want of a better word, it's something about translating for each other or something, isn't it? It's like that empathy means that, again, not in a soppy way, you can sort of help each other. Like the other thing I remember famously saying with you, I remember saying to someone else, now I know Maitreyabandhu's just said no, I think you've written in it, but he actually means yes. And I said, you actually mean yes, don't you? And you said, yeah, that's what I mean. I mean yes. Like, you've written no. No, that's not what I mean.
You need this level of translation.
But you need to. But I think the deeper friendship allows the friendship on that level to have enough empathy to know that when someone's done something, even if it sort of doesn't look good in a way, that you don't say, well, I suppose all I'm saying is you see the best in your friend, not the worst in them. And in seeing the best, you help other people to see the best. And I feel like, well, that feels alive. Well, between us, but, I could include other people in this room, like Vishvandra, and like other people. That's what one does for a friend. Yeah.
It's as if that all of us have within ourselves something beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
Buddhism doesn't really believe in hope. It's a Christian concept, hope, and it's very problematic. But if there was a Buddhist version of hope, which there isn't, it would be that there is something. It would be, in this thought experiment, that there is something within us that goes beyond us, but that doesn't negate us, or it actually brings out our difference. But your friends, what you're trying to be is friends on that level. It's like whatever it is that goes beyond me, in me, is the same as that in you.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what's vital. Differences of age, gender, race, sexuality, any difference you can think of are unimportant by comparison with that.
Yeah.
And I feel it's the only way in which all those differences, and one of the things I'm terrified about in modern life is a growing suspicion between men and women, between gay and straight, between cisgender and transgender. But, if we're not careful, we'll just have more and more reasons to split apart from each other and to mistrust each other, which is in nobody's interest. I think one of the reasons we are friends is because we're friends at that level, of something within ourselves that goes beyond ourselves, which is somehow mirrored in the shrine.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I came into this room, I was at art school, I was there with people like Damien Hirst and so forth. I was the one that didn't succeed, is always my joke. And I came in here and I looked at the figure, the Buddha figure, and I just remember thinking, how ridiculous, how embarrassing. I was at art school where what you did is, for your art piece was to walk naked and drag a dead pig's head behind you. That's what a friend of mine did. Walk around as though dragging a dead pig's head. So the idea of having a golden statue, I was like, how 19th century, how very then. And at the same time, weirdly, I had this sense of jubilation. I had this kind of art school kind of smugness and this sense of real jubilation that here was an image for something which I couldn't have recognised in myself, which I think is refracted in all of us and becomes the basis of human friendship. Because we need something in ourselves in reference to and in service to all the other silliness of all of us. We human beings are so silly. I mean me, so sort of silly, seeming almost irredeemably silly, and yet there is something in us that is wonderful. Is a refraction, a reflection, a reflection of a reflection of the transcendental, which is what the image of the Buddha is getting at. And I think both of us bow to the shrine, as it were, and we have since we were children almost. And that's made that stronger in us as we've done it, and as we've then tried to recommend other people do that, bow to the shrine, metaphorically and literally, and that it's that the friendship has been based on.
Yeah. And I think something about bowing to the shrine, I must say it took me a little while longer to allow myself to bow to a shrine, because of the Catholic conditioning. The first time I came into this room, actually, it was our small shrine room. I sat I deliberately sat with my back to the Buddha. I thought I was being terribly, probably nobody noticed because we sat in a circle, we were sitting in a circle. It was a study group, but I was trying to do this really subversive thing of thinking I'm not even going to face the Buddha at first. But anyway, that aside, and obviously that's not what I do now.
Which is also a contact with the Buddha, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a definite, yeah, absolutely. But it's something like, when you said bow to the Buddha, what came to my mind is, I bow to the Buddha because you can bow to the Buddha. Like when I discovered the centre and the Dharma, I thought, oh, at last, at the ripe old age of 22, I thought, oh, at last, this is something I can wholly give myself to. Like everything up to that point in my life, there's a ceiling that you bump against. You try, whatever you try at that age, you try and throw yourself into it. That's what I was trying to do. But I couldn't do it. There was always a limit. Whereas coming here, I thought, oh, this is something I can wholly give myself to. I'll never hit a ceiling to that. And maybe if, I'm just trying to think how that connects with friendship, but maybe if you can do that, like very, very fully, with the Buddha, with the, with everything the Buddha represents, if you can do that, then it sort of allows you to do it elsewhere in your life, to give yourself fully without worrying about that, without cynicism, without kind of thinking, oh my goodness, what will happen, I'll get disappointed or something. It just frees something up very completely, actually. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, what was making me think is that only the Dharma is big enough for us.
Yeah.
We human beings, we're unfathomable, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know what it's like when you think you're one person and the next day you think you're another. I remember as a young man, literally trying on different versions of myself. We're unfathomable. We've got all these different pulls and yearnings and so on. It feels like it's only the Dharma that's big enough to hold the whole of the human psyche. Yeah. You said to me, anything else will say, no, you can't open to that bit. That's not right.
And it's big enough because it's infinitely big, right, because it's unfathomable, isn't it? It's like you'll never sort of catch up with it, as it were. It's, however immense you think it is, it's more immense than you can imagine.
I mean, I want to try and sort of change this tack a bit, because we've talked about that, but a bit more. But, although it is very interesting and striking, I think, talking together like this. But how do I? I feel that you becoming ordained that was ages ago, wasn't it? I was ordained in 1990, you were ordained in 95, I think. And so many of my friends it brings you closer. It's like, in another way of putting, I've always thought of you as a Dharma sister, is another way. And in that moment, you became still more of that. And I think that keeps growing, like now I'm being in the college together. So you being ordained affects me, if you see what I mean, and affects the friendship. And this is my attempt to draw towards, the whole question of women and ordination.
Or ordination at all.
Or ordination at all, Have you got any thoughts about that? I can't remember what we said we might talk about.
It doesn't matter. I knew you wouldn't remember. We were sitting in a cafe talking about, and I thought, this is very interesting. I don't know why we're talking about this, because we're going to say something completely different. Anyway, we had
a croissant, though,
didn't we? We had a croissant. It was very nice, yeah. Ordination.
So let's.
We promise them we'll talk about ordination.
So what are we going to say about ordination?
I don't know.
Well, let's go back. I said, if men ask me, I say hesitate. Yeah. And I think that's right. It's a very, very serious thing to do, and in some ways, off camera, I wouldn't recommend it. Buddhism's not for everyone, and ordination certainly isn't for everyone. I think I say that in all seriousness. In some ways, even in many ways, I wouldn't recommend it. Or rather, I wouldn't if you're not really quite sure that you know who you are and you know what you're doing. And of course, none of us do. I agree with myself. You know, you really need to know, am I doing this because that is what I feel, or am I doing this because my peers are doing it? You know, like in on the men's side of the thing, you know, you get you get a sort of Mitra group, and somebody asks for ordination, and very often the whole group very quickly asks for, you know, it sort of spreads. So you can think that you could ask for ordination because your peers are doing it, and because that's kind of the current of things, and so you need to hesitate for that reason. You need to hesitate because you need to really know yourself that is what you want to do, that you're not doing it for some weirdly fragmented reason. You're not doing it for some weird spiritual reason. You're doing it just because you want to do that, even you're compelled to do that. Anyway, the next thing I say, I will stop in a minute. I know what you're thinking. The next thing I say is that once you decide that is what you want to do, and remember this is your decision, I'm not even recommending it, once you've decided that's what you want to do, you need to go to Pamaloka, the men's ordination training centre in Norfolk. Because when you go there, you can only go there if you've asked for ordination. And I remember, and I always say, you always say things like this because it's what happened to you. I remember I asked for ordination. I remember asking it really clearly and thinking, in fact, I asked for ordination in my mind when I was explaining to somebody why I hadn't. Somebody said to me, are you going to ask for an ordination? I was like, no way. Here's my good reasons why I'm not going to ask for ordination. I rattled them all off. As I was talking, it was really weird. I thought, I'm going to ask for ordination. It was really odd. I go, well, here's a good reason. They were all really good reasons. I thought, I'm going to. And now, I'll ask for ordination. Having convinced myself not to, I will. You know. Anyway, so when I went to Pamaloka, I'll get there. When I went to Pamaloka, I remember getting there thinking, I can only be here because I've asked for ordination. It was really quite a shock to me, you know. In other words, when you make a decision, you need to do something in this real world that actualises the decision, that shows that you've made it, that's made a change. So I wonder what you say to the women who ask.
Okay. Let me start at the beginning. But okay. I think that's true. But I think that I really like that, what you said, when you make a decision, you have to actualise it, don't you? Because I think that counts for everything, doesn't it? A bit like in our meditation in the first half of the class, you have to make that commitment and then actualise it, deciding to go on retreat. Any retreat, never mind a retreat because you've asked for ordination, it's like you're showing your own psyche that you mean it. It's quite interesting what happens even when you book on a retreat, even if it's not for a few months or a few weeks. Something immediately is activated in you. You've shown yourself you mean it. It's not just a bright idea.
Well, otherwise you could be at home watching YouTube, YouTube clips about meditation.
So I think that's right. So, well, I always, I don't say hesitate. I say sort of go for it, really. I think, and I don't know if this is because I'm talking mostly to women, I probably am, but I think what I get concerned about, and I certainly did this myself, is almost thinking that to take a step such as asking for ordination, asking for ordination simply means that you're very sincerely going to commit yourself to a life of value, and you're integrated enough to actually commit to that, to actually vow to do that. That's what it means. Now, you're right, like making a vow is a very, very serious thing, and you're going to have to be very sure of yourself before you make that vow. But that's going to happen along the way. That's what we say training for ordination. Yeah. I really don't think that's really quite the right word, because it's not like training for a marathon or something. It's actually deeply getting to know what the Dharma is, like deeply getting to know what Triratna is as the context. But really what it is deeply getting to know yourself. Like, can I actually one day make these ordination vows? So I think if anybody's like sincerely thinking of doing that, I'd say do it, because my fear is almost that people will hesitate too much in the wrong sort of way and think, I've got to be this perfect, special sort of person, that's this order member type sort of person, whatever that is, you know, that, well, I don't know what idea people have got. I always think people have got an idea about what order members are. Like, just come and like live with some in one of our communities for a few weeks even, and you'll see that it's nothing to do with perfection. It's nothing to do with being a special sort of person. It's nothing to do with having attained any sort of level of anything. It's simply about like just really being willing to throw yourself in. So I'd always say, just throw yourself in. All those kind of funny bits, like, am I just doing it to please people? Am I just doing it to be a good girl? Am I just doing it to be a bad girl or a bad person or something? Like, that will all come out in the wash. You know, it's very, very thorough, the process. And the process, I mean, even process isn't the right word. Oh, there's also jargony, isn't it? When you ask for ordination, the order responds and says, that's great, now we're going to help you do that. And that help means now we're going to really become friends with you and help you to work out all those funny bits that are kind of doing it to please people, doing it to rebel, all that. Like, it'll all come out in the wash. It really, really will. So I'd say, if anybody's thinking, if any people here are thinking about it, if anybody online is thinking about it, like, just do it, and don't worry about it too much. You know? So there we are. You can take your pick. Well, maybe it's like, if you're the sort of person that tends to hesitate, just do it. And if you're the sort of other person, maybe pause for thought. Yeah. But also, maybe even that isn't right, because it's probably better to ask your friend, you know, what sort of person you are. Because if you think you're the sort of person, you know, we don't know ourselves well enough. We need a friend who knows us better than we know ourselves, so we can just say, no, I think you should just go for it. Yeah.
But
so anyway, so that's what I would
but,
say.
Isn't there?
Oh yeah, so there's a but.
Yeah.
So I've just moved a year ago to our women's ordination training centre, Triratna, which is what this is all about and why you've all got a little bit of paper on your cushion, is because if somebody else, and this really happened to me just yesterday, we should asked just a little while ago, my friend Tanya, who I've known actually for quite a lot of years. I first met her on one of our winter retreats that we were probably doing together. And I remember her so vividly on that retreat because she was so absorbed in meditation. She was coming and saying, she said, I've just had this like amazing meditation experience. She said, I don't know what it was. She said, my mind was just like Teflon. All the distractions were just flowing off it, and my mind was just radiant and concentrated. She says, I was trying to get distracted, but it wouldn't work.
We've all been there.
And I was like, I think that's what we call like dhyana in Buddhism, you know. So she had this very, 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 very excited about our meditation, very, very excited about the Dharma, and really been practicing. Anyway, recently, I kept on thinking, when she's going to ask for ordination? Anyway, she asked. So yesterday she said, guess what? I've asked for ordination. I said, great. Come to Triratna, where I live. We're going to have a great time. And then I thought, rats, no, you can't come, because the whole our women's ordination training centre is just too small. The retreats are literally booked up for like more than a year in advance. You've got to go on these waiting lists. It's like just really a pain, because you've got to try and plan a whole year ahead. Anyway, that's a whole thing. So from the person, from Tanya or anyone, Jemima, who's trying to book on, it's really annoying and difficult. But it was so interesting when I noticed my response, because I said, oh no, you can't come. I'll go on the waiting list. And I could feel my whole being just what a thing to have to say to someone. Go, that's really exciting. Tell you what, go on our waiting list for a year. And I felt, I don't know, felt like a bit like saying, it's about like saying to a plant, I tell you what, I'll water you in a year, you know. It was a bit like, by which time the poor plant. So, you know, I feel that from, what I'm trying to say is I feel that from my side as well. I feel for the the person who wants to, throw themselves in and really, once they've made that decision, whether it follows your advice to hesitate or my advice to just go for it, in a way is probably irrelevant for this point of view, because then they have decided, then they're trying to, all this energy, all this is it, I found something, I want to take this forward. You want to say yes to that, don't you? Any human being wants to say yes to another human being's growth. I think that must be a mark of being human, that you wanna say yes, however that growth's manifesting. When we're talking about Buddhism and the Dharma and that growth manifesting in, wanting to commit to this limitless ideal, wanting to share that with other people. But any growth is a positive thing. Any growth of any creature, you want to say yes. That's the natural human response. So to want to say yes, but be put in a position, you've got to go, well, actually, I want to say yes, but I can't say yes, because I've got to actually say no, because that retreat's full, and the next retreat's full, and the next one, actually, for a whole year, right into next year, it's full. It's a very, very painful, frustrating thing. I felt that kind of rage. It felt like not a negative rage, but a sort of, this has got to change, we must change this, we must change this.
I mean, I'm really struck by what you're saying about you want to say yes to growth, because, growth is basically life. Yeah. Anything that's not growing isn't alive.
That's true.
And you always want to meet the instinct to grow, especially to grow spiritually, with a yes and a here's what you could do, and why don't you come on this one with me, and we can, you don't want to meet, otherwise it's like, I don't know, saying to a rose, could you join the waiting list? And you can grow in a year's time, It's interesting, another friend of mine was saying in her going for refuge groups, sometimes people meet in groups to talk about their practice and confess and so on. She was saying that when the Triratna calendar comes out, her WhatsApp group just goes nuts, because everybody is saying, you get a book on this one. It's like a rock concert. Before you know it, the tickets will sell out in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, less than that. Yeah.
So I'm really struck by that. So now we've got an opportunity, haven't we? It seems to me, or rather, we've got an opportunity. We've found a place which is next to ideal by the sound of it. I'll get you to talk about it. We found. Let's just say what the place is first. Well,
I'll say a little about the backstory first. Yeah. So for the last 2 years, me and the whole team at Triratna and many other people, but particularly me and the team, really felt this rage actually. Maybe they didn't all feel it was rage, but I felt it. So this force, so we've got to do something about this. And we decided, okay, we're going to raise as much money as possible, and we're going to look like crazy and find a place that's 3 times the size, so that we can just say yes, 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 instead of no, 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 or not yet, not yet, not yet. So the last 2 years we've been doing that. So we've been raising money, and we've raised lots and lots of money, and we still need to raise a lot more, but we've raised lots and lots of money. And many people in this room have given lots of money, actually, so I do want to say this, and many people online who are watching online have. And we've been looking for a place. It's really, really hard to find somewhere for a retreat centre. All those of you who've been on retreat at any retreat centre will know this, because you're trying to do these things that are, you're trying to do 2 things that seem contradictory. So first of all, you need to find somewhere that's beautiful and secluded. You don't want it with like a pub on the corner and really noisy and in the middle of, I don't know, a high street or something. So you want something remote, secluded and beautiful. At the same time, you've got to have it accessible enough that people can actually come, can actually come easily and without spending more money on the train fare than the retreat. So you're trying to do these 2 contradictory things, and that's hard for a start. So we've been looking, and not found anywhere yet. Found a few, like, could it be this, could it be that, but maybe, but nothing really quite. Anyway, recently we went and found a place, and it was both these things. Beautiful, secluded, and amazingly on really good transport links. But not only that, it is very near another one of our retreat centres, which is called Adhisthana. It's very nice that people from Adhisthana are actually tuning in tonight. And Adhisthana, some of you have been, it's like our main central retreat centre. It's where our teacher, Bhante Sangharakshita, lived the last few years of his life, and he's now buried there in this very sacred place, which is Bhante's burial mound. It's beautiful. It's shaped in a circle, and it's a lovely image of a circle because it's like the heart of a whole mandala that sort of spreads out through the whole of Adhisthana, through the whole country and through the whole world, and people come there on pilgrimage. And it's like Adhisthana, means blessing and grace radiates out. Anyway, this retreat centre, it's not a retreat centre yet. This retreat centre of my imagination is very near Adhisthana. And so costs more money than we ever imagined. If it wasn't near Adhisthana, we'd just be like, tell you what, nice, but it's just not, we just can't do it. But the fact that it's near here, it just means it's just got so much blessing attached to it. So we just don't want to let this chance slip through our fingers. I don't want to, in 10 years' time, look back and go, we lost this place just because we couldn't get, another bit of money. I really don't want that to happen. I just don't want that to happen. So that's the place. I mean,
and it's going to be purpose-built, isn't it?
Oh yeah, this would give us a chance to build a completely purpose-built retreat centre, which again, I love that. I love the idea of being able to make somewhere just what we want instead of, so often, you're just, I don't know, if you haven't got enough. So often we're just trying to sort of make do and kind of get some old farmhouse and go, I'll tell you what, we just put the shrine in this old mantelpiece or something. But to build something, but to actually create a Buddhist architecture and create something purpose-built would be amazing, could be ecological and so on. So it could be very, very good. And we've got a chance to do something amazing. So we need some more money.
Yeah, it's quite straightforward. All we need is some more money.
All we need is
Do we know
money.
how much?
Well, we've raised, we want to raise another few £1 million. So we've raised £1.5 million. We can obviously sell the place we've got for another $1 million plus. People have given us lots of loans of money, offered us lots of loans of about £1 million. So if we could get another couple of million in gifts and loans, we would have enough money. Yeah. And the more money we have, the fewer loans we need, because obviously loans is great, but you have to pay them back. And that would, we would be paying them back over many years. So the more money we can have, the better it is. So the LBC's done this amazing thing, which is said if we can raise £50,000 in the next 6 weeks here, then the London Buddhist Centre are going to match that from their own reserves. I think it's a gift that keeps on giving in a way, because then lots of people will come to the new Triratna, get ordained, and then come back to the LBC and other centres, like looking at Tara smiling away at me. The Tara can come, get ordained, and come back and be sitting up here, teaching the class on and Ruth and all the other people that have asked for ordination here. So that's what we want to do. So is it your turn now? Yeah.
Well, I'm very struck. You've got those three things. You've got this opportunity in front of us, where a very beautiful part of the countryside, where you could actually build a retreat centre. And anyone who's been to Vajrasana, the fact that we were able to purpose build a retreat centre. I can't tell you the value that gives. Not only does it give you masses of sort of practical value, you build it to modern standards so that you're not using absurdly heating it and all that kind of stuff. It's much more environmental. It also means that it's much more sustainable. But of course it can be built expressing a Buddhist vision. It's really striking when you go to Vajrasana that we worked on that very, very closely. And what it does, you feel more like a Buddhist there because it is expressing your vision. It's not just like a farmhouse that you've kind of managed to squeeze something into, which somehow still is a farmhouse. So you get that. The fact that it's near Adhisthana, I think, is a bit magical. And I can't quite say why. But there's more and more people moving around. Well, there's people obviously living and working in Adhisthana. But there's more and more people moving into that area, order members, some very senior order members. Starts to feel like we're starting to create a little bit of a Buddhist world, in Herefordshire, in that area. Which I don't know, there's something magic about that. It'll have all sorts of benefits that I don't think I can quite imagine yet. But when you think, that's actually really important that it's near Adhisthana. So what we need to do that is we need money. Always we need money. So what I thought tonight is let's just raise some money. I could think that easily, but let's just raise some money. So I was thinking, okay, the LBC is saying that if we raise 50,000 at the London Buddhist Centre, the LBC will match it. And in other words, it will match anything we raise up to 50,000, which is really, really generous of the LBC. Really good. And then we were talking, weren't we, having a coffee together, and you yesterday you were in Brixton teaching a Women's Day morning that morning, and you raised £2,000 yesterday morning.
Okay, well they gave £2,000.
Yeah, they gave £2,000. They gave £2,000. So I thought, I wonder whether we could sort of see whether we can raise 10,000 tonight. Brixton, smaller, newer group, a smaller group. That was my idea anyway.
Great idea. I like it.
And then if we raise 10,000 tonight, we could that would be matched.
Yeah.
So we basically raised 20,000 tonight.
Well done. Yeah. Your maths.
It's natural to me now. I was talking earlier on. I said, is 100,000 a million? Is it the same thing? She said, no, it's not. She was like, I bet somebody else better do the maths. Anyway, as I've said more and more, I'm famously no good at facts. So I thought, why don't we see whether we can, I don't know, let's have a go. Online, all of you online, suddenly everyone's clicking off. But all of you online, there's 240 or something like that online. 290. 390. Wow, all of you on that. That's fantastic. You can give with a link, so there's a link. So what I thought we'd do is we'd just start with who would like. I don't know. This is you told me to do this, didn't we? And so we'd start with who could give £1,000. So who could give £1,000 online and in the room? Can anyone give £1,000?
I can pledge £1,000.
You can pledge £1,000. That's okay. That's great. Pledge £1,000. That's great. Would anyone else like to pledge £1,000? Because then that gets doubled, of course, immediately.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, great, wonderful. Thank you very much. Anybody online? It's sort of easier for them. Anybody else in the room? I was going to say, I know it's a lot of money, but it depends, doesn't it, what we mean by a lot of money? I don't know. Anybody else? We can start to gradually lower it, just for ease of whatever. We're going to sit here? No, we're not. Okay, so what about anyone give £500? Let's do that. Again, online as well. Anyone online who are watching us, can you just give 1,000? You can still give 1,000. I should have started with 5. Anyway, could you give £500? Yeah, great. So far we've really raised in the room 2,500, so that goes up to
5,000.
What? 5,000? 4,500. But thanks, that's great. So anybody else in the room who can give £500? Is that doable to anybody else? Of course, this isn't the only chance. This is the beginning of
lots of things.
Lots of events,
Yeah.
Lots of events.
Yeah.
Anybody else in the room?
I can raise 500.
You can raise 5,000. Okay, great. Fantastic. So that takes us up to
3,000.
3,000. So
Which gets double to 6,000.
Which gets double.
Amazing.
So it's this easy, yeah. It is not that hard. Okay, let's say 200. Who could give 200? Yeah? Okay, great. Two people. That's really good, thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, Great, thank you, Connor. So, my math, is anyone doing mental arithmetic? Where have we got to now?
I think that's about another 1,000 at least, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's really great. Okay, how about 100? Anybody else could give 100? Yeah, it's lovely. One. The hands right up. Great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 800. It'd be good if we had another 2, then we could take it up to 9, 10. There we go. 1,000. That's great. And let's do some 50s. Yeah? 50 quid. Heavens, it's hardly a week's worth of coffee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. What's 12?
600.
600. Fantastic.
Yeah. And people might want to,
What?
Okay, no, I shouldn't interrupt you in your prime.
No, I've never done this before. I'm quite enjoying it. Actually,
keep going, so I shouldn't.
Let's go to, perhaps that, so that's, I don't know how much we've raised there. It's
quite a lot.
Quite a
wonderful
lot.
amount.
And we doubled it all, so that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you've got in front of you your Triratna Loka Unlimited little thing. So if you've just pledged something, put your pledge down there. But everybody can pledge something. Everyone can do that. You can do that even for no good reason. You can just do that, because it's worth doing. And everybody online, we've got the link that you can pledge to. Really great that we've got so many tuning in from online from all over the world. How about you take this moment? You know what it's like online. It's so easy because you've probably got a mug of tea and the cat. And it's very easy to sort of not quite feel involved. But why don't you, as other people here in the room are writing their pledges, why don't you online click that link and write your pledges? Because you know what it's like as soon as you turned off the link, turned off your computer, it's so easy just to forget all about it.
I think Becky's trying to communicate with us.
Amanda, just a minute ago, donated £50.
That's great.
Oh,
That's great. So thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thank you all of you for giving. Keep giving online. I'm starting to feel like Bob Geldof here. This is like Live Aid. Does anybody remember Live Aid? 1985, was it? That wasn't so long ago. So anyone online, go to that link just now. We're filling in the forms just here. As I say, this is really the beginning of a whole kind of season of events where we at the LBC want to just say, well, we really want this to happen because we want, even that's wrong, but going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, going for refuge to transcendent values is the meaning and purpose of life. And if this world of ours, which is a terrifying place at the moment, I can barely look at it. It's so terrifying in every imaginable way. We really urgently must find, all of us, something within ourselves that goes beyond ourselves. Without that, we will just vociferate more and more and polarize more and more and find things to mistrust in each other more and more. That is the way society is going. And one of the reasons it's going that way is because we haven't got a transcendental vision anymore. We haven't got anything we can all get behind. So the only thing we can get behind is me and my differences and what I want and what I need and what is important to me. And we've got billions of people doing that. The only way, I really believe, for us to make any progress in this difficult world that is incredibly frightening is to rediscover a transcendental spirit that is within us but goes beyond us but is not separate to us. I personally feel that the metaphor of God isn't just not something we can do anymore, even if we think we can. Nietzsche in 1853 said that belief in God has become unbelievable. And what he meant by that is that even if you want to, you just can't. The metaphor sort of died. But with that death, if we're not careful, we've killed off all meaning. We've killed off all sacredness. We've killed off all transcendence. Buddhism is the tradition to bring that back, but bring it back without the menace of a personal God, which has caused also so much suffering. But without God, without some sort of transcendental meaning, we individuals are getting lonelier and lonelier and more lost in the abyss of self. So the reason the LBC are matching the money is because that's what the LBC is committed to. Discovering that, each of us have to discover it individually in ourselves. It's not a theory, it's not a lesson we can learn. We have to keep discovering it within ourselves, rediscovering it in ourselves, and acting on it. And ordination is the beginning of acting on it in the most serious way. It's not the end. In a way, the main thing for order members is to keep getting ordained, be more and more deeply ordained. In a certain way, it's easy enough to be ordained. It's staying ordained that's difficult and really making the most of that. But that's all an expression of discovering this inner great matter of transcendence, which the world so much needs. So that's why the LBC are now having this whole season, I think it's 6 weeks or something,
6 weeks, yeah,
given over to this project, because we want everyone to go for Refuge to the Three Jewels, not for an idea, not for a theory, not for an ideology, but because it meets our deepest possible need. So we're going to finish just now, because it's wonderful that those of you have given, and I'm sure more of you will give, and I'm sure more of you online will give, and I'm sure more and more people will give as the 6 weeks go by. And again, I want to thank all of you for giving. Yeah. And I thought what we'd do is we'd get Subhadramati to lead us in the rejoicing in merit section from the puja as a ritual rejoicing that we're all giving for something in our own interest. And then I'll start us in the Tara mantra. And then what we'll do as the mantra is sounding, put your cushions and mats together at the wall in silence, and then you can just leave the room as the mantra is quietening. Just leave the room when you're ready in silence, and then we can give our pledge forms to anyone standing around with bowls outside, and then we can chat once we're in the other room. Yeah. But it'd be lovely to finish kind of ritually by rejoicing in the merits of all beings, the beings in the room, the beings online, all beings, because all of us have this transcendental dimension, and then have this mantra to the Tara mantra to activate that. Yeah, so.
Thank you. Rejoicing in merit. I rejoice with delight.
I rejoice with delight
In the good done by all beings.
in the good done by all beings,
Through which they obtain rest.
through which they obtain rest,
With the end of suffering.
with the end of suffering.
May those who have suffered be happy.
May those who have suffered be happy.
I rejoice in the release of beings
I rejoice in the release of beings
from the sufferings of the rounds of existence.
from the sufferings of the rounds of existence.
I rejoice in the nature of the Bodhisattva
I rejoice in the nature of the Bodhisattva
and the Buddha,
and the Buddha,
who are protectors.
who are protectors.
I rejoice in the arising of the will to enlightenment
I rejoice in the arising of the will to enlightenment
and the teaching,
and the teaching,
those oceans that bring happiness to all beings
those oceans that bring happiness to all beings,
and are the abode of welfare of all beings.
and are the abode of welfare of all beings.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Swa. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Swa. Om